My wife fell in love with an intern at her company. She gave me the car, the house, and the money, then walked away with nothing but a divorce certificate.
James, she said softly, I can't betray Alexander, and I don't want to betray you either.
I looked at the woman who once crammed into a tiny apartment with me, eating instant noodles, promising to be with me forever. I wiped the corner of my eye and said quietly, "All right." Hearing my response, Wendy froze for a moment, as if she hadn't expected me to agree so easily. She thought I'd at least put up a fight, refused to let go. After all, she'd come prepared to drag things out, thinking she had the resolve for a lawsuit or a long, cold war. That was Wendy for you, never hesitant when it came to what she liked. Just like back then, when she'd liked me so much she was willing to fight for me, to drag me out of that suffocating household. "If you want to bully James, you've got to deal with me first," she'd said. Then she'd smashed a bottle over a guy's head, glass shards flying everywhere, her fierce gaze making those thugs back down. They swayed a little, then slowly let me go and walked off. She'd only wanted to use me to pay off my mom's gambling debts, not cause any real harm. I cried as I covered her wounds, my heart aching, but she'd smiled proudly, holding me close. "James," she'd said, "I told you I like you, and I won't let anyone bully you." But now she doesn't like me anymore. She's fallen for that new intern. Wendy opened her mouth, a flicker of guilt finally showing in her eyes. "James, I wronged you. But I like Alexander. I can't let him carry the label of a homewrecker. I want to be with him openly." She was straightforward, even now, nearing 30, with that same youthful fire. Such nobility. Who wouldn't admire true love? But I just had one question. I wiped my eyes, looked up, and smiled faintly. "Just one thing. Did your Alexander only find out today that you weren't single?" At first, she'd complained the new assistant was clumsy, timid, like a kitten, and that she couldn't stand him. Later, she got angry about the Valentine's gift Alexander picked out for me. "Who gives a Gundam model for Valentine's Day?" she'd said. But the accused assistant had looked up with innocent eyes and said, "But I think it's cool." Wendy had laughed, exasperated, but I'd seen it then, the helplessness, the affection hidden in her eyes. Eventually, she said Alexander truly liked her, and such a sincere guy deserved the best. Naturally, she needed to regain her freedom, to stand openly beside him. But she also said she didn't want the innocent Alexander to bear the label of a homewrecker. So when their feelings first began to bloom, was he unaware that Wendy was married? At my question, Wendy's expression went blank. Then she turned away. "James," it was uncontrollable emotions. "But I promise, until that point, we did nothing inappropriate. We have no guilty conscience toward you." Indeed, joking in the office wasn't cheating. Defending him wasn't either. Giving him a ride home? Still innocent. Standing up for him when he was frustrated? Nothing wrong with that. I sighed and nodded. "Fine, let's get divorced." Wendy didn't want anything. She gave me the house, the car, the money. She left with nothing but that divorce certificate. What could I possibly be dissatisfied about? She finally let out a breath of relief, looking at me happily. "James, I knew you'd understand and let us be together." Of course she knew. From 18 to 28, it had always been her and me. We met, dated for 4 years, and married for 5. I've always been gentle by nature, not one to hold grudges, especially as a teenager. Back then, Wendy used to complain I didn't really like her. "If you did," she'd say, "you'd be jealous sometimes." When I didn't react, she got so mad she disappeared for 3 days. 3 days later, she came back, resigned, her head lowered, frustrated. "James, you win. I really do like you. Even if you don't care, I'm willing to be your fool." That was when I hugged her tight. She didn't know I'd searched for her everywhere for 3 days, nearly losing my mind. Holding her close, terrified, I whispered, "You said so." "Don't leave. I'm scared." She froze for a moment, then wrapped her arms around me in delight, as if she'd just won something huge. Her smile was wide and radiant. "I thought you really didn't care. You're just like a cat, so aloof." After that, we got into the same university, graduated, and stuffed ourselves into a tiny apartment, living on noodles. When our company was new, we scraped by to get clients. Eventually, everything got on track. She proposed, we got our marriage certificate, and had an extravagant wedding because she said, "I like James, and James deserves the best." Now everything's settled, and she's holding a divorce certificate. "James, don't blame me," she said. "Alexander deserves the best." The intern was waiting not far away, looking delicate, timid, as if I'd bullied him. Wendy noticed, stepping protectively in front of him. Alexander's timid. If you've got grievances, talk to me. Don't scare him. Alexander blushed, speaking gently to me. James, don't mind her. She's just got a bad temper. She doesn't mean any harm. With that familiar tone, anyone watching might have thought it wasn't me who'd spent 10 years with Wendy, but him. And maybe that's the truth. Watching that unsettling scene, I realized my bitterness had long gone numb. I held up the divorce certificate, smiled faintly, and said, No worries. We won't be in touch anyway. For some reason, Wendy frowned, hesitating. James, even divorced, we're still friends. If you ever need anything, you can come to me. Alexander's smile froze beside her. I didn't react. Just shook my head. No need. I won't have anything come up. And even if I do, it won't be you. After all, she had nothing now. No money, no power. What would be the point of finding her? Besides, I don't have the habit of messing with married women. That one line drained the color from both their faces, as if they were suddenly afraid of me. Alexander quickly changed the subject. Sitting in what used to be my passenger seat, he asked kindly, Where are you headed, James? How about letting Wendy give you a lift? Wife leaves me for a younger guy, tears soaking my Land Rover. Yeah, I'll pass on that. I declined and drove my Land Rover straight to the fertility center. The doctor I'd scheduled an appointment with was waiting. He handed me a new report. James, it looks like the IVF you and Wendy started has been successful. The embryo's developing steadily. Wendy left me the cars, the house, and a child. But she'll never know. After the divorce, I stuck to my original plan and moved the company base to City A. Everyone knew Wendy had given up her kingdom for a pretty face, the company she'd built from scratch. Handed over just like that, her husband gone with the wind. Her wedding with Alexander was a big deal, even live-streamed on the big screens in City B. She might have weathered storms and walked away with nothing, but she still had connections. Plenty of mutual friends, some of whom couldn't calm their indignation, attended. 10 years together, and not even 6 months after the split, she's already this unashamed, marrying so ostentatiously. It was deliberate, a calculated move to humiliate me. Online, people were saying Alexander was her true love, that I'd just been a stepping stone, the choice she made because her heart wasn't really in it. I could only scoff. If only they knew what kind of partnership Wendy and I had shared through all those years of struggle. Like hell, I was a freeloader. But yes, it was true about the live stream. And of course, people were watching. The comments were something else. This is straight out of a novel. The heroine dumps a deadbeat side character and gets with the real leading man. So sweet. Just another day being an NPC. Bet that greasy dude who's out of the picture is fainting in a bathroom somewhere. Serves him right. If it weren't for him, Alexander wouldn't have been hurt so many times. That's when I realized Alexander had been documenting his life with Wendy online. Turns out they were couple goals to many followers. It's like watching one of those dramas where the puppy-like boy lead meets the alpha female CEO. Can't the creepy side character just get lost so the real couple can have their happily ever after? Well, they got their wish. I did lose my family. My dad passed early. My mom, a gambler, died 3 years ago. Her body dumped, just a pile of ashes now. I've got nothing left. Just sipping nourishing soups, keeping my child healthy, surrounded by luxury cars, dealing. With Wendy's absence and the endless solitude that followed, I told our mutual friends not to bother sending me photos anymore. I said I'd let it go. What I never told them was that Wendy had actually sent me an invitation to her wedding. Over the phone, she said, James, we're still friends after all. Don't you want me to be happy? That made Alexander's eyes glisten. He came out sheepishly, saying, James, you're not still mad, right? Was I wrong to win Wendy's heart? It was strange. Alexander looked teary, but somehow that only seemed to fuel Wendy's anger. James, she said sharply, do we really have to stay on bad terms? Even if we're not married anymore, we were together for so long. Can't we at least be friends? I chuckled in disbelief. I hadn't said much out of consideration for what I was still left with, money and property. But maybe my silence made them think I was a fool. I've always been the patient type, someone who doesn't argue easily. So even now I kept a calm smile. Friends! Sure, why not? Originally I couldn't make it, but since you're so insistent, I'll send a gift, all right? They seemed pleased. Knew you weren't petty, James, Wendy said, relieved. I tuned out the rest. No time for fools. I blocked them immediately after. The doctor later mentioned that too much stress isn't good for the child's well-being anyway. Later, I heard that on the actual wedding day, something seemed off. The bride kept glancing toward the door as if expecting someone, but no one showed. Not until she received 99 wreaths from her ex during the live stream, each one reading, "May you never have kids and congrats on becoming a stepmom." But that's not my problem, is it? It's been 7 years now, and true to my word, I've cut off everything related to Wendy. I just never expected to see her again, especially not at an art show in City. There I was, hand in hand with my daughter, admiring the paintings. Tiffany, that's her nickname. She's pale and sweet, not a crybaby, but she's got a fiery side. She'll throw punches when other kids call her something heartless, like motherless child. When facing those kinds of parents, they always get defensive. My kid's not wrong. No wife, huh? Kid doesn't have a mom either. I tried to reason with them. Let's not shout, let's talk it out. But they fired back immediately. Born to a mom who didn't stick around. Clearly your child lacks discipline. Me? I said calmly. You think you could use better language? But they couldn't care less. The wife was a big-shot manager, and their kid had gotten away scot-free even after nearly blinding another child once. They were fearless, practically jabbing a finger in my face while talking. So what if I said it? Who do you think you are? Just wait till my wife arrives. We'll see about your kind. Look at you, all pretty boy. Who knows what your kid's turned into? I sighed and called my assistant. Half an hour later, the once smug couple were now desperate, begging me to spare the wife's career. I held my child feeling helpless. Everyone says I've always been nice about things, so why won't they ever listen? Is this your wife? I asked calmly. Come on, Xiaojiang, stop standing and kneel down when you speak. The person I paid $1 million a year dared to put on a show in front of me. Blind as she was, when she first pushed the door open, her attitude was aggressive, demanding that the principal fire someone. At first glance, you took in a widower's son. Aren't you afraid of bad luck? Then she turned and froze. She saw me sitting there calmly. Her legs buckled from shock when she realized, James. She finally remembered that her reclusive boss was a widower with a son, too. Yes, ever since the divorce with Wendy, I've been saying I was widowed. She dropped to her knees before her husband even processed what was happening. James, what, James? The man sensed something off, glancing between us nervously. I sipped my tea slowly, raising my eyes. I didn't know Lucy and her husband were so short-tempered. Lucy knew her husband's mouth all too well. They were always equally matched. Sweat trickled down her forehead as she stammered, James, it's a misunderstanding. She stumbled over her husband's feet. The supposedly imposing man went pale, his speech turning to stutters. Yes, a misunderstanding. He forced a smile, pulling his son closer. Just a kid speaking nonsense. Lucy shot her son a look, gritting her teeth. Apologize already. Even the most rowdy child is still a child. Spoiled brats stand no chance against real adults' intimidation. Soon he was crying and apologizing. My daughter turned her head, huffing, refusing to say a word. Lucy managed to smile weakly. They've learned their lesson. James is known for his good temper, never one to argue. Don't worry, I'll discipline him well once we get home. Gotta admit, Lucy knows me well. I never argue. I always speak smoothly, just like now. Nodding with satisfaction, I said, as long as you educate your kid properly, that's best. Every single dad deserves respect. Besides, the fault lies more with you adults. I set my teacup down, smiling warmly like a concerned boss. As I understand, the tuition here runs tens of thousands a semester. I imagine Lucy's talents will land her a high-paying job elsewhere soon, right? Lucy's smile froze. Behind me, her pleas mingled with her husband's and their child's cries. I turned away, holding my son. My phone lit up with a message from my assistant. James, per your instructions, Lucy's resignation is nearly finalized. I replied without much emotion. Compensate her as necessary, but she's done in this field. A quick affirmation followed. I'm an easygoing person. From the moment I realized arguing solves nothing, I've never raised my voice at anyone. Instead of wasting time and words, I prefer decisive action. Wendy moved on, so I divorced her, taking all my assets. She and her family were unreasonable, so I fired and blacklisted them. When my mother gambled excessively, expecting me to cover for her, I cut all ties. One morning, I simply received the news of her death in a trash heap. In the car, my little boy nestled against my neck, still upset about those earlier remarks. He whispered, Daddy, don't be afraid. Even without a mom, Tiffany will fight the bad guys and protect you. Such a sweet, sensible child. It made my heart ache. I patted his head gently, calming him down. Now, at the art exhibit meant to relieve some stress with him, I heard a surprised voice behind me. James. Turning around, I saw Wendy. She looked far from her once confident self. It made sense. We were at the top of our game back then. Startups are always a mix of risk and reward, but now the market's settled, and making a fresh start isn't easy. She'd lost weight, lost her carefree boldness, but still wore a sharp suit, though it had wrinkles she couldn't quite iron out. Beside her stood Alexander in casual wear. "What are you doing here?" I asked, puzzled. I remembered the exhibit was invite only, no entry without one. Wendy didn't seem to hear my question. Instead, she spoke brightly. "I've been trying to reach you for years, James. Seeing you okay is a relief." "What's there to worry about?" I replied evenly. "James, how have you been all these years?" she asked cautiously. I'd almost forgotten. After taking over the company and focusing on my child, I'd kept a low profile. I stayed behind the scenes while someone else was listed as the director. Wendy probably thought I hadn't managed well without her and sold the company. I didn't bother explaining. "I'm doing fine," I said politely, then added, "And you, Wendy?" Wendy paused, but before she could answer, Alexander quickly tightened his grip on her arm. "We're good too," he said shortly. "Thanks for your concern, James, but let's not pry too much into a married woman's life." His tone carried a faint hostility, petty and misplaced. Funny, he hadn't seemed to care about the married woman part when he was chasing her. Wendy once found that jealousy adorable, even attractive. But now she frowned. "I'm just catching up with James. Why are you fussing?" Her irritation contrasted sharply with her once eager affection. Alexander's face stiffened. He'd always been simple and straightforward, the kind of man who courted Wendy after college and married her soon after. Seemingly kind and naive, but his pride ran deep. Wendy's public tone had humiliated him, especially in front of me, souring his mood even further. And sadly, he still resorted to the same old move. Sure enough, the next moment his eyes filled with tears. He bit his lip, voice trembling. "You really still look down on me. I'm not as capable, not as considerate." "I've been trying to reach you for years, James," Wendy said softly. "Seeing you okay, it's a relief." "What's there to worry about?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "How have you been all these years?" she asked cautiously. For a second, I almost forgot how different things had become. After taking over the company and focusing on my child, I'd chosen to keep a low profile, staying behind the scenes, though still running the show. On paper, someone else was listed as the director. Wendy probably assumed I hadn't been doing well without her, maybe even that I'd sold the company. I didn't bother correcting that assumption. "I'm doing fine," I said, nodding politely. "And you?" Wendy hesitated, but before she could answer, Alexander tightened his grip on her arm. "We're good too," he said with forced civility. "Thanks for your concern, James, but let's not pry too much into a married woman's life." His obvious insecurity left the moment awkward, almost petty. Funny, he hadn't cared about that married label when he and Wendy were flirting. Once upon a time, Wendy would have found such jealousy adorable. She'd have loved him even more for it. But now she frowned. "I'm just catching up with James," she said sharply. "Why are you fussing?" Her irritation stood in stark contrast to the warmth she'd once shown him. Alexander's expression froze. He'd always been straightforward, a simple, naive man who went through college with Wendy, eventually marrying the woman he loved. But his self-esteem ran deep, and public humiliation, especially one involving me, cut him to the bone. It soured his mood further, and sadly he resorted to the same old move. Sure enough, the next second his eyes glistened. He bit his lip, voice trembling. "You really still look down on me, don't you? I'm not as capable, not as considerate as him, but you once said that even so, I'd always hold the top spot in your heart." He didn't get the chance to finish. The woman who once adored him, the one who could chat for hours with him on the phone, now looked bored. "Why say anything?" she cut him off. "If you already know you're not good enough." I smiled politely and stepped back. "Seeing as you two have personal matters, I'll leave you be." Inwardly, I was already wondering how the security team had let such irrelevant people slip into the event. Unfortunately, this pair wasn't ready to let me go. Exposing Alexander's insecurities pushed him into tears, tears that once made Wendy melt, but now just made him look pathetic. So you finally said what you really feel, huh? He sobbed. You liar! Didn't you say you loved me most? Don't you remember the promises you made? He clung to Wendy relentless. But this was an upscale event, and no one thought his display was endearing anymore. Disapproving eyes turned their way. Wendy, usually the one others flattered, was visibly embarrassed. Through clenched teeth, she hissed, "Can you not embarrass yourself like this?" She couldn't believe she'd ever found him charming. Turns out, choosing a husband like me, someone with composure and grace, had been the real deal. Men like Alexander? They were for fun, not for life. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Every night since, she'd regretted divorcing me and marrying him. Wendy fumed inwardly, not even noticing Alexander's stunned face. She turned toward me as if she wanted to say something, but then a small voice cut in. "Dad, who are they?" The entire room fell silent. Only then did the feuding pair notice Tiffany standing beside me, her tiny hand holding mine. She'd seen everything, her face blank, too calm for her age, missing the innocence a child should have. A kid?" Wendy's voice shook as her gaze fixed on Tiffany's face. The resemblance was faint but undeniable. "James, this child," even though she didn't want to admit it, the truth was written all over Tiffany's features. I didn't have to say a word. Wendy's expression shifted from shock to something dangerously close to joy. Alexander, though, caught on, and whatever composure he had left turned to venom. "A kid?" he spat. "You went and had a kid? You're just trying to use that child to win Wendy back, aren't you? You squandered your company and Wendy's money, and now you're hoping to use this kid to make her take you back? Shameless." His voice rose, trembling with years of bottled frustration. "Wait until Wendy's business deal here is closed. You won't see her again. How did a guy like you even sneak into this kind of event? Do you even belong here? Don't you know Wendy and I are getting back together? Once this deal's through, I'll be rich again, back to how things were." He was nearly raving. "But James, why? Why is it always you? Why do you keep showing up? Security, where's security? How can an art event just let in someone so shameless?" As the guards approached, Alexander pointed at me and Tiffany, barking orders. "Kick them out already. If your boss finds out you let someone like him in, you'll be in trouble." The security team exchanged uncertain glances, then looked toward me. Because the boss he mentioned was me. I owned the exhibit. That morning, my assistant had mentioned a small business owner begging for a chance to collaborate. I hadn't realized that business owner was Wendy. Alexander, oblivious, puffed up with arrogance again. "You've chased someone else's wife here?" He sneered. "Forgot Wendy divorced you because you blocked her and said you never wanted to see her again? Regretting it now? Think having this illegitimate child will get her back?" I gently covered Tiffany's ears. Thank God she hadn't heard. If she realized someone was calling her names because of me, she'd throw a fit, and I'd never hear the end of it. "Stop it!" Wendy snapped suddenly. Her shout drew every gaze in the room. For a fleeting moment, it was like we were back in our youth, her fiercely standing up for me. She glared at Alexander. "James only loves me, and he's my real husband. The child is my blood. What makes you think you can comment? Never forget how you convinced me to leave my husband." The crowd gasped. 5 years ago, what was once reckless love had turned into an ugly scar. Now, in front of everyone, Wendy accused Alexander of seducing her into abandoning her family. Alexander lost control. "Security!" he yelled, nearly hysterical. "Throw him out!" The guards, flustered, approached hesitantly. "Mr. Ano," one said, "they have invitations." We didn't expect this. "Ano?" Wendy and Alexander turned toward me in shock. Nano, actually. My artist pen name. And as it happened, I was the main organizer of the entire exhibit. In other words, the elusive invite they'd been so proud of chasing was mine, the partnership they were hoping for. With me, I sighed. "Invites are fine. It's not your fault," I told the security team. "My mistake." Lately, I'd been busy taking Tiffany on trips. My new assistant wasn't familiar with my personal history, so when someone mentioned a promising collaboration, I hadn't asked who it was. I just agreed, and that had set the stage for this entire mess. Honestly, when Wendy left everything behind, divorcing Alexander for the sake of love, I already knew it wouldn't end well. She was confident, thinking she could start over from scratch, achieve success again without relying on anyone. But she forgot one truth. Even a pig can fly if caught in the right tailwind. You just can't expect that kind of luck twice. Opportunities are fleeting, and once they're gone forever. Still, I never imagined Wendy would fall this far. Even after all these years, she was still stuck at the bottom. No way, Alexander muttered, snapping back to reality. How could he be Ano? He's just some guy who got lucky with women. Without Wendy, he'd have gone broke. How could he be Ano? He just couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that the man standing before him was the same person he once mocked. That while I stayed calm and built my success quietly, his failures had multiplied, and my success only rubbed salt in his wounds. Mr. Ano, the head of security asked, nervous, how would you like us to handle this? Before I could respond, Wendy blurted out, eyes bright, James! I knew you wouldn't sell the company we built together. Let's talk! With my plan, we can take it to new heights again, work together, like before. For the first time, I found her persistence genuinely annoying. Throw them out, I said flatly. The 6-foot-tall guards, eager to prove themselves, needed no second command. Each grabbed one person and hauled them away, dumping them outside like unwanted guests. The onlookers gasped. Wait! Isn't that Wendy from City B? Someone whispered. What happened to her? I heard she divorced her husband for an intern. I thought she must have been amazing, another whispered. Who knew she'd end up with nothing after leaving her husband? Wendy's just a disgraced mutt now, she's nothing. Wendy had always cared about saving face, but today, she lost every shred of dignity. Every cruel word reached her ears. Even back when she first started her business, no one had ever treated her like this, let alone when she was at her peak. But everything had changed. Lying on the ground, Wendy suddenly turned her glare on Alexander. He was still cursing my name, furious that I could possibly be doing well without Wendy, that I was thriving while he, far from becoming the wealthy house husband he once dreamed of, was stuck in a strained, bitter marriage. Wendy ignored his outburst and slowly got up, walking toward the back door of the art exhibit. Just then, she saw Tiffany being escorted out by security, and a flicker of joy crossed her face. She rummaged through her pockets and, after a moment, found a small piece of candy tucked away in a corner. Alexander must have slipped it there back when he was still an intern. Back then, when their romance was just starting, he used to sneak candy into her bag every day. After Wendy caught on, she'd teased him, scoffing, "Are you trying to sue the kid?" He'd only grin and stick his tongue out playfully. You work so hard. A sweet treat every day will make you smile. Even then, I never went out of my way for Wendy like that. Sure, I'd cook for her whenever I had time, but that was different. Less sentimental, more practical. That's why she'd found Alexander's little gestures so intriguing. Eventually, she divorced me and married him. At first, everything went just as she'd imagined. Even though I'd blocked her and cut off contact, she seemed happy. She enjoyed Alexander's youthful charm and the novelty of their love. But slowly, the smooth path she'd envisioned for her startup became riddled with obstacles. She got caught up in exhausting, hands-on work, and when she finally made a bit of money, she'd come home to find the credit card maxed out. The culprit would be lounging on the couch, holding a brand new gaming console. "Babe, look! Isn't it great?" he'd say proudly. They'd argue bitterly, again and again. Those fights opened a floodgate of never-ending conflict. What she'd once found charming now felt ridiculous. The jealousy she used to think was cute had turned into petty tantrums. That candy she held in her hand, who knows how long it had been there, forgotten. But that didn't matter now, as her daughter Tiffany would surely understand her intentions and not mind. "Tiffany, you're Tiffany, right?" Wendy approached the little girl with what she thought was a gentle, amiable smile. "I'm your mom." Tiffany looked up at her, her gaze steady, too calm for her age. There was no trace of innocence there. Staring at Wendy as if she were a crazy person, she said flatly, "Lady, why are you being mean?" The bodyguard moved as if to escort Wendy away, but she quickly blurted out, "Tiffany, I really am your mom. There's just been a misunderstanding between your dad and me. He's upset, but now that I know you exist, I understand how much he cares about us. Tiffany, don't you want Daddy to be happy? Let's have fun together, plan a surprise for him, okay?" Even beaten down, Wendy still looked beautiful, charming even. Especially to a 6-year-old. Indeed, Tiffany tilted her head slightly. "Really?" "Of course," Wendy said warmly. "Tiffany, Mommy loves you." She reached out, her face lighting up with a hopeful smile. Tiffany smiled too, but the next second her expression hardened. She stared blankly at the woman and said in a calm voice, "Get rid of her." The bodyguard hesitated for only a moment before raising his hand. Wendy was struck and fell hard to the ground, gasping as she tried to get up. "Tiffany, I'm your mom, your real mom," she cried. "So you're the one who upset Daddy," Tiffany said, eyes narrowing. "I won't believe you. You're bad. It's all a misunderstanding," Wendy pleaded desperately. "I was tricked too. And your daddy, he must have said bad things about me out of anger. But it's okay, I don't blame him. I'll make things right with both of you." But before she could finish, Tiffany was already looking down at her with a faint smirk. "Miss," she said coldly, "surely you didn't think Dad wouldn't tell me everything, did you?" Wendy froze. She had assumed that, for Tiffany's sake, I would avoid mentioning anything about her, that I'd protect the child from those truths. She thought that would give her a chance to make amends, to start over through Tiffany. As long as Tiffany liked her, I'd have to soften, for my daughter's sake. But she hadn't expected this sharp, self-assured little girl to look her dead in the eye and say, "Dad told me about you when I asked where Mom was. You're a bad person, for leaving Dad for a bad man. And I'm going to help Dad deal with you." Wendy had overthought everything. I'd never sugarcoated the truth. I never avoided talking about her. I wasn't wrong. Tiffany had every right to know. Better she learn the truth early than grow up confused when Wendy inevitably stirred up trouble again. Still, Wendy wouldn't give up. "Don't you miss your mom at all?" she asked weakly. Raising me was Dad's job. Attending parent-teacher meetings was Dad's job. Teaching me to talk and walk was Dad's job, Tiffany said firmly. Why would I turn on Dad for a stranger? This little one had clearly been learning some new phrases, probably from secretly playing on her phone. She lifted her chin proudly. This was for Dad. Wendy got a good beating that day. When Tiffany came back, she naturally reached for my hand. I looked down at her. "Weren't you going to the restroom? What took you so long?" She looked up, rubbing her belly with a pout. "Had a tummy ache. Daddy, carry me." I didn't suspect a thing. I just smiled, picked her up, and carried her away, never noticing her quiet little smirk as she rested her head on my shoulder. Later, after putting her to sleep, I finally sat down to finish my work. Rubbing my temples, I asked, "I told you to keep an eye on her." "You are, right?" My assistant nodded. "Yeah, we're on it. Once she found out who you were, she went straight to the company asking to see you." "Then throw her out," I said evenly. "And let everyone know, any company that signs with Wendy can forget about working with us. Anyone who hires her is standing against me. James." I leaned back, my voice firm. "If everyone wants to mess with me, I don't mind a showdown. But don't say I didn't warn them." My tone left no room for negotiation. The assistant stared for a moment, surprised but not hesitant. "James, you're really going to go that far?" "Why not?" I replied coolly. "What's the point of letting her off easy?" "It's a no-brainer. A shady woman and a traitor. You deal with them when they're down. Why give them a chance to bounce back?" I wasn't one for arguments. But that didn't mean I didn't hold grudges. When Wendy cheated on me, I took her entire share and left her with nothing. I'd let that go. As for Alexander, he took a disloyal woman, not worth my revenge. But showing up again? One trying to take my daughter, the other calling her a bastard in front of everyone? If I didn't teach them a lesson, how could I keep my place in this city? Wendy and Alexander didn't understand. When punishment comes from above, it's like a mountain crashing down. Some debts. They need to be settled. My assistant worked quickly. Over the years, I'd built my standing in this city's business world. Everyone knew better than to cross me for the sake of some middle-aged woman making a desperate second attempt at her career. Wendy soon hit wall after wall. And Alexander? Since that day, he'd been living in fear, watching Wendy come home defeated again and again. "Weren't you supposed to be so amazing?" he sneered one night. "Why can't you even match up to James?" He still kept up his polished image online, showing off, pretending to live the good life, feeding his followers envy. But lies don't last forever. If Wendy couldn't recover, their fake glamour and forced affection would collapse soon enough. "James is out of your league," he taunted. In their rundown apartment, Wendy glared at him across the table. "James was a damn good partner back then," she snapped. "And you? Just waiting to reap rewards you never earned. Alexander, if you hadn't seduced me, I never would have divorced James. My family wouldn't have fallen apart." "Seducing you?" Alexander scoffed. "Was I the one who forced you to cheat?" To leave James for me? You wanted both the cake and to eat it too. Now who's pretending? He leaned closer, his eyes cold. Let me tell you, there's no way you're dumping me to crawl back to him. I'll make your life hell first. The threat was clear, but Wendy didn't care. He'd always played the innocent fool. Even now, his words didn't scare her. Right now, all she could think about was finding a way back to me. She'd realized, after that brutal encounter with Tiffany, that the girl was being fiercely protected, and she had no way of getting close. Still, she tried. But once again, her plan was crushed. In a cafe meeting, a manager looked at her with open contempt. "What a joke," he said, standing to leave. "And you think you deserve James's notice? Even a stray dog wouldn't take this." It wasn't that Wendy lacked talent, but the funds her project needed were far beyond what any regular company could afford. It was a pipe dream. As the man left, Wendy stood frozen until she saw me descending from the hotel stairs nearby. Without hesitation, she ran toward me, only to be stopped by my bodyguards. "James, is it you?" she cried out desperately. "You hate me that much? I'm Tiffany's mother. What's in it for you, making my life hell?" "It makes me happy," I shot back almost instantly, grinning as Wendy froze. "Your misery brings me joy." "Isn't this how divorced couples act, Wendy? Why do you think I just take the hit quietly, like some saint?" She wouldn't stop. "I can change, James. I know where I went wrong. This project means everything to me. If I fail, I'll die." I perked up, a little amused. "That's some good news," I said, honestly surprised. That was when Wendy finally realized I truly wasn't in love with her anymore. Her act seemed utterly pointless now. Cornered, she lashed out. "Do you really have to go so far?" I shook my head. "No." For a moment, she looked almost touched until I went on. "I could be even harsher. This is just the tip of the iceberg." Her expression hardened into fury. "You weren't like this before." "Yeah," I replied calmly. "Back then, you weren't cheating on me. You actually loved me too. But you've always held everyone else to a high standard while letting yourself off easy, always making it seem like I was the one at fault." She drew a sharp breath. "No matter what, I'm still Tiffany's mom. Aren't you afraid she'll blame you for being so heartless when she grows up?" I looked her dead in the eye.
Do you even want Tiffany to recognize you as her mom?
"Of course I do. I am her mom," she fired back. "Fine," I said evenly. "Every expense, from her living costs to her classes and tuition, adds up to $1 million or more. If you want to be acknowledged, then you should pay your share of the child support for these years. It's not much, just a few million." Wendy's face twisted with anger. She left in a rage, shouting, "James, you pushed me to this. Don't regret it." She always made it seem like she had no choice, like she was some noble victim of circumstance. Why hadn't I realized sooner how fake she really was? My assistant looked uneasy. "James, if you push her like this, what if she does something extreme?" I watched her storm off and said quietly, "If you don't push hard enough, how will the dog ever jump over the wall?" That very night, Alexander's blog, silent for over a year, suddenly posted new couple photos with Wendy. His followers flooded the comments. "Oh my gosh, your favorite couple is back."
So happy?
It's like a bonus chapter after the novel ended. Who said Alexander's family was fake and unhappy? They clearly love each other. Under one of those comments, Alexander himself replied, "There were some unexpected events, but it doesn't matter. Wendy loves me, not someone who schemes to steal her away. We're very happy." Speculation exploded. The most liked comment read, "Could it be that greasy ex-husband stirring up trouble again?" Alexander didn't delete or deny it. The account's attention skyrocketed. 3 days later, Wendy walked straight into my competitor's company. Right then, my assistant knocked on my office door. "James, here are the materials for this bid." I looked up after flipping through a few pages. "By the way, has Lucy's resignation process finished?" The assistant nodded. She was making a fuss about not leaving, but suddenly agreed yesterday, said she found another job. But besides our competitors, who in City A would hire her? It's a competitive relationship, but they probably wouldn't heed your warning or worry about offending you. I nodded, already understanding. The next evening, just 1 hour before the bidding event, Alexander's account released a video. He appeared in a plain white shirt, looking worn out and pitiful. "I've never wanted to worry my fans or cause any online attacks," he began, voice trembling. "But this time I have no choice." He stared directly into the camera, eyes glistening with tears. "James, I know you're watching. I know you're bitter that Wendy divorced you and chose me. Be mad at me or Wendy, we don't care, but don't use the child as a bargaining chip. The child isn't your tool. Wendy and I won't be like you. Using a kid won't break us up. We're suing for custody. Because no matter how heartless a father you are, Wendy is still her biological mom. And I'll treat the child as my own. His words came out reluctant yet noble. Public opinion exploded instantly, and my background went public overnight. James using his kid as leverage. James, the homewrecker. These shot straight to the top of the trending topics. Alexander's fans were the loudest. Old man, quit joking. They're happily married. Who do you think you are? The child is innocent. Using her to threaten others is disgusting. Wow, in novels it's always the evil ex trying to ruin the main couple, but this is real life. While my assistant stayed calm, he quickly checked everything. The young lad saw those comments, he said quietly. He wants to fight back. That kid, always with his fiery temper. I gestured for him to let Tiffany play some games. We'll deal with the rest after the bidding. The bidding wrapped up quickly. On my way in, I ran straight into Wendy. She clearly knew how the public had turned, and she looked a little guilty. James, don't blame me. You started this, she muttered. Behind her, my competitor's CEO was practically glowing. Wendy, your husband's gone now, and you're losing talent too. Lucy, who'd joined his firm, chimed in with a smirk. Yeah, James. Instead of competing and making a scene, maybe focus on cleaning up those nasty rumors. I smiled at her. Lucy regretting leaving me? She mocked. Not at all. I just wanted to remind you, I said kindly. Looking at the rival CEO but speaking to Lucy, I added, I heard your company's struggling, desperate for a big deal. Mixed up in this mess, you'd better hope you don't end up unable to pay your kids' tuition. Then I turned to the CEO. Husband's gone, kid's gone, soon the money might be too. Watch your step or it'll all be lost. Her husband came from a wealthy family, but he couldn't stand her constant failures. Eventually, he'd taken the kids and gone back to his grandfather's estate. Honestly, that wasn't anything new. Compared to her, I was still a rookie at this kind of downfall. I'd never been that low before. The moment I stopped talking, the man in charge looked furious, teeth grinding. James, watch what you say, he hissed. Don't burn all your bridges. You never know when you might need them. Hey, all your bridges. You never know when you might need them, he said through gritted teeth. I glanced down at him and chuckled. Well, let's see how this plays out. As for Wendy, she's not even on my level right now. I won't even bother giving her a second glance. No surprise, their proposal was just a tweaked version of Wendy's old plan. It looked decent enough, but that was about it. With so many companies competing here, none of them were that bad. Of course, if their proposal hadn't been mixed with parts of our original bid plans, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. This is absurd, my assistant muttered, shocked. Then he glanced instinctively at Lucy, who had recently left our company. It was you. You stole the plan, he accused. Lucy only smiled smugly. Don't go around slinging accusations. The leaked plan, coupled with the scandal surrounding the lead, left no suspense about the outcome. Their company won the bid. Up on stage, Wendy finally seemed to have regained her former glory after all this time. I watched her bask in her brief moment before turning to leave. Let's go, I said. First thing, I released the photos and evidence of Wendy cozying up to Alexander while she was still married. I tagged Alexander with a message. So, what's up with you getting close to my ex-wife back then? As for the kid, she was legally conceived through IVF before the divorce. I could raise her easily. There was no need to find her an inadequate mom. A few years down the line, there were also records of Wendy using our shared funds to buy Alexander an apartment. I had gathered those when I first noticed signs of her cheating, thanks to the private investigator I'd hired. At first, I only wanted enough evidence to make sure she'd walk away with less. But before I could even use it, Wendy had rushed headfirst into her role as a love-driven warrior, giving me everything she had just to get the divorce papers signed. I'd been stunned by her foolish move. I signed the papers immediately, afraid she might change her mind. I'd expected to only take 2/3 of the assets, but I got even more. The evidence I hadn't needed back then turned out to be incredibly useful now. Solid proof. A legal notice was also posted, flipping public opinion overnight. The same people who had called me names were suddenly in shock. What they thought was a romantic love story turned out to be a tale of betrayal and deceit. Why on earth had she acted so innocent, knowing full well he had a wife? The public was furious, merging both the cheater and the mistress off the stage entirely. Rarely did it happen so cleanly. Alexander had no rebuttal. The evidence was undeniable. He'd known he would be exposed, but figured that a few hours of dragging my name through the mud was worth it. Meanwhile, Wendy's plan was approved and their company won the bid. Funds poured in, and Wendy was back on top, dragging Alexander with her into a posh new lifestyle. One day he even called me, his voice dripping with mockery.
James, you really think you've won?
I couldn't care less about an account now. Wendy's got money, nothing's off limits. I was just about to board a flight with Tiffany when I replied blandly, "Well, best of luck to you both." As the plane began to take off, I made one last call. The voice on the other end was calm and respectful.
James,
they greeted. Gazing out at the clouds, I said lightly, "It's getting chilly. The Wiltons should go under." The next day, the once thriving project hit an unexpected snag. Unpaid bills surfaced. The main investor fled. The Wiltons had to cover the gaps themselves. This was their last hope, but the pit was bottomless. In just half a month, the Wiltons couldn't hold on any longer. They declared bankruptcy. Wendy, thinking she was at her peak, instead crashed hard, no hope of rising again. When my vacation ended and I was on my way back to work, I asked Tiffany, "Honey, does it bother you that you don't have a mother's love?" The little one looked up with bright eyes. "With all the love from you, Daddy, and all this money, how could I ever feel a lack?" I chuckled. "Money isn't love." She replied with wisdom beyond her years, "If you have lots of money, there's lots of love." "Tiffany will always love you, Daddy. I'll make lots of money when I grow up." Reassured, I dropped her off at school and nearly got blocked by Wendy and Alexander on the way out. Alexander looked rough, his eyes red, glaring at me.
"This is all your fault. You planned this. You ruined me."
I played dumb. "What did I do?" He ranted on, voice breaking.
"Now I've lost everything."
"Are you satisfied?" "I can't live with a failure forever," he shouted. But their drama had already become public spectacle, splashed all over the internet. Good luck finding a straight job now. Wendy, buried in debt, tried to use Tiffany as leverage. "James, I'm Tiffany's real mom. Help me just this once." I helped by calling the cops. For causing a disturbance, they took both her and Alexander away. We probably won't meet again. I've already told company security to blacklist them under the label "No dogs or these two allowed." Our staff objected, calling it discrimination against dogs, so we changed it. The two remain permanently banned, left to decay in the aftermath.